Shalom, shalom again, brethren. This is part 5 of the lesson study, Yahuah's new moon. When is it and why is it important? We would have already done lessons 1 through lesson 4, and you all will very well know that I have consistently stayed in the scriptural context to guide me through this lesson study. So, to refresh our memories, I will read Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20, which reads, "To the law and the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them." Again, when we read Isaiah chapter 28, verse 9 to 11, it reads, "Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk, and drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, and there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to his people." Now, outside of the scriptural accounts, I will share 3 witnesses. 2 who were Hebrews that have left documented accounts of their knowledge of the new moon, and 1 who was not a Hebrew, who has also left documented accounts of what and when is the new moon. The reason for doing this is to show that there were people through the ages that knew when new moon was, and for the most part they kept it, and importantly their accounts on the subject matter aligns with the scriptural accounts. I now therefore will introduce you to Yahushua ben Sirach. During the reign of Ptolemy III, Euergetes, and that is spelled Euergetes, please excuse my pronunciation, king of Egypt, there was a Hebrew who went into Egypt to live for some time. His name was Yahushua ben Sirach. He found a book which was written by his grandfather. This book, written in the Hebrew language, had much that a person could learn from. So Yahushua ben Sirach thought it most necessary to bestow some diligence and travail to interpret it, using great watchfulness and skill in that space, to bring the book to an end and set it forth for them also which in a strange country are willing to learn, being prepared before in manners to live after the law of Yahuah. This all occurred sometime during the period of 280 BC to 222 BC. The apocryphal book of Ecclesiasticus also known as Syriac, is attributed to this man, Yahushua ben Sirach. Now in chapter 43 of this said book, Yahushua ben Sirach states from verse 6, He, and that is Yahuah, made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times, and a sign of the world. Verse 7 reads, From the moon is the sign of feasts, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. Verse 8 reads, The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of the heaven. So now, from verse 6, the moon is the sign of the feast. This is a reference to the feast of unleavened bread and the feast of tabernacles. Yahushua ben Sirach he goes on to describe how the light of the moon decreases in its perfection over the course of these feasts. So if the moon decreases in her perfection during the feast of unleavened bread and the feast of tabernacles, then she must be perfect or full on the day these feasts begin, which is the 15th day. Both of these feasts begin on the day when the moon is full and perfect, after which that light begins to wane as the days of the feast and the days of the month progress. This fully agrees with what Enoch has penned in chapter 78, verse 8, where he describes the waning of the moon from the full moon on the 15th. In Ecclesiasticus chapter 43, verse 8, Yahushua ben Sirach describes the way in which the month is reckoned by the moon. He says, increasing wonderfully in her changing. Clearly, this is telling us that the start of the month is marked by an increase in the moon's light, which again aligns perfectly with what Enoch has already written. So here we have seen that Yahushua ben Sirach, who lived hundreds, if not thousands of years after Enoch, still agrees with what Enoch penned. So after presenting Yahushua ben Sirach as my first witness, I will go to my second witness. His name is Philo. The accounts of Philo that I present here are from 20 BC to 50 AD. Philo was a Hellenistic Jewish philosopher from Alexandria. He lived before, during, and after Yahushua's earthly ministry. Philo, being a Hebrew, had a biblical understanding of the biblical calendar. In one of his quotations about the new moon festival, he states that the festival takes place when the moon begins to illuminate. As previously stated in the lesson study, part 2 and 3, the moon becomes illuminated immediately after conjunction. We cannot see it, though, until the sun sets, because the moon is obscured by the greater light of the sun. Philo states, the order which we have adopted, we proceed to speak of the third festival, that of the new moon. First of all, because it is the beginning of the month, and the beginning, whether of number or of time, is honorable. Secondly, because at this time there is nothing in the whole of heaven destitute of light. Thirdly, because at that period the more powerful and important body gives a portion of necessary assistance to the less important, weaker body. For at the time of the new moon, the sun begins to illuminate the moon with a light which is visible to the outward senses, and then she displays her own beauty to the beholders. This is taken from Philo's Special Laws 2, section 26, 140 to 142. Again, Philo plainly states that the new moon day follows conjunction, and that the months are reckoned from conjunction to conjunction. The third festival is that which comes after the conjunction, which happens on the day of the new moon in each month. Again, this is taken from Philo Special Laws 2, section 11, page 41. This is the new moon, or beginning of the lunar month, namely the period between one conjunction and the next, the length of which has been accurately calculated in the astronomical schools. Again, this is taken from Philo Special Laws 26, 140. The following statements by Philo indicates that the moon completes its perfect configuration. Example: waxing, half moon, full moon, waning, half moon, conjunction at the end of each week. When reckoning the dawn after conjunction as the commencement of new moon day, this is most often the case. Again, the periodical changes of the moon takes place according to the number 7, that star having the greatest sympathy with the things on earth, and the changes which the moon works in the in the ear. It perfects chiefly in accordance with its own configuration on each seventh day. At all events, all mortal things, as I have said before, drawing their more divine nature from the heaven, are moved in a manner which leads to their preservation in accordance with this number 7. Accordingly, on the seventh day, Elohim caused to rest from all his works which he had made. This is taken from Philo Allegorical Interpretation 1, section 4, 8 to 9, and section 6, 16. There is one principle of reason by which the moon waxes and wanes in equal intervals, both as it increases and diminishes in illumination. The seven lambs, because it receives the perfect shapes in periods of 7 days. The half moon in the first 7-day period after its configuration with the sun. Full moon in the second, and when it makes its return again, the first is the half moon. Then it ceases at its conjunction with the sun. Again, this is taken from Philo Special Law 1, page 178. The interpretation of Philo's statements are confirmed in the following. Philo states that the moon should be full at the end of the second week. Example, the 15th day of the lunar month. Please note that when reckoning the day after conjunction is new moon day, as new moon day, the moon will fall on the 14th. The moon will be full on the 14th or the 15th of the month. In scripture it states, on the 10th day of this month, let each of them take a sheep according to his house, in order that from the 10th they may be consecrated to the 10th, that is, to Elohim, the sacrifices which have been preserved in the soul, which is illuminated in 2 portions out of the 3, until it is entirely changed in every part and becomes a heavenly brilliancy like a full moon at the height of its increase at the end of the second week. Taken from On Nating with the Preliminary Studies, section 19, page 106. And this feast is begun on the 15th day of the month, in the middle of the month, on the day which the moon is full of light. In consequence, on the providence of Elohim, taking care that there shall be no darkness on that day. This again is taken from Philo Special Laws 2, the 5th Festival, section 28, page 155. This then again is in perfect harmony with Psalms 81 verse 3. Brethren, I have presented to you Philo, witness number 2. Now to witness number 3. I turn your I turn your attention to Clement of Alexandria, who lived between 150 AD and 215 AD. In volume 6, chapter 16 of the Stramata, Clement writes, in periods of 7, the moon undergoes its changes. In the first week, she becomes half moon. In the second week, full moon. And in the third week, in her wane, again half moon. And in the fourth week, she disappears. This part here, where Clement says in the fourth week she disappears, I have shown you in the lesson study 1 and 2 that there's never any light in the moon for the fourth Shabbat day. All of the other days of the moon's cycle, be it new moon day or from the first Shabbat to the third Shabbat ending, there's always light, but never any light upon the fourth Shabbat. Here we see Clement agrees with what the scripture states. Again, in the Stramata chapter 5 says, quote, Peter inferred thus neither worship as the Jews, for if the moon is not visible, they do not hold the Shabbat, which is called the first, nor do they hold new moon, nor the feast of unleavened bread, nor the feast of nor the great day. So here again we see that Shabbat is anchored to the moon, as with all other days that are anchored and counted from the moon. This is the end of the information from witness number 3, Clement of Alexandria. Brethren, if need be, I will produce another video on this lesson study in the future. Please contact me via YouTube, comment section, WhatsApp, or email. As usual, remember I am no teacher. I share what I learn and what the Spirit reveals to me, and I am always open for correction. Shalom, brethren.